You're gonna fucking love them. 1, 2, 3, go on,
I'm Dr. Brynley Pearlstone, and I'm a triple threat. I'm a middle child, I'm a millennial, I'm very gay. And that all adds up to one thing. I'm desperately starved for attention all the time. It's a bit of a problem, because I spent the last 4 years of my life surrounded by astrophysicists. I was doing a PhD, so I wasn't getting that need fulfilled. And what I'm telling you right now, Robin, because you seem to have this intensity that I'm really drawn to, is that I need your attention. So while I'm on this stage and lit by these lights, Robin, and while you've paid for the pleasure of this, I'm going to tell you my life story. Because it's about me, Robin. It's about me. Now, my life story begins as so many life stories do at birth. I was born with a malformed hand. I was born with a few extra fingers and some bones in the wrong place. My mum likes to blame it on Chernobyl, but I like to remind her that I was born 3 years before Chernobyl happened. So when I was about 3 years old, I woke up from a surgery. I had some bones moved around, some fingers jiggled. I don't know what they were doing. I was 3. And I was surrounded by all my loving family. I had fathers and mothers, one of each, grandparents, 2 of each, aunts and uncles, all around me. And I said something that a drowsy 3-year-old full of sleep drugs would say. My aunt, my aunt then translated for me, said to the surgeon, "Oh, he seems he's going to be sick." The surgeon said, no, he'll be fine, he's just a bit drowsy. And before I could, sit up and lean over the bed, before I turned a shade of pale that just isn't healthy, my aunt had lunged forward, arms outstretched, to form a lovely vomit receptacle. Now, she's my favourite aunt. That said, she's my only aunt. Back then, when I was 3 years old, she was 21. She's been 18 years my elder for my whole life. That's how time works. So when I was born, she was just heading off to university. When I was 3 and vomiting into her well-manicured hands, she was deciding what's next. When I was like 6 and playing astronaut in a cardboard box, she was off studying her PhD. As I was a teenager and working out next steps in university, she was off doing real science. She's a scientist. She's my role model. And because I'll do anything, Robin, for attention and for validation, I decided that I wanted to out-science my aunt through my whole life. Now, her field is neurobiology and mine's astrophysics. Now, I'm not a brain surgeon, but she's not a rocket scientist. So at this point, because early years are boring, we can fast forward to 2014 when I moved to Glasgow. I'll say life story, Robin. It's very abridged. I've only got 8 minutes. And I moved to Glasgow because the group here in Glasgow is actually a really good group in the field that I want to go into, that I am in now. And that field was in gravitational waves. You might have heard of them. Now, gravitational waves are this relatively new thing. Well, I say that. We've been looking for them for the last 50 years. They were hypothesized about 100 years ago, but they've been around a little bit longer. 14 billion years longer. They're new, kind of like how the Americas were new to white people in 14. So, back in the 90s and 2000s, some really smart people decided that they could try and find these gravitational waves. What gravitational waves are, by the way, it's what happens if you cross general relativity with a your mama joke. Oh, your black hole's so massive, when it moves, it makes the whole universe shake! Oh! No, seriously. If something really dense and really heavy, like a black hole or a neutron star, starts accelerating and whipping itself around, it sends out waves into the fabric of space and time. And they have the effect of stretching the definition of a meter. And I don't mean stretching a meter like on a size 30 waist, if you stretch the definition of what an inch is. I mean that if you have a 1 by 1 patch of universe, it gets longer and shorter and taller and shorter as the gravitational wave passes through. And like I say, some very smart people back in the 90s decided that they could, try and work out how to do this, how to find these things. And like I said, they've only been hypothesized 100 years ago, so quite quick going. And the way you do that is what's called a laser interferometer gravitational wave observatory. Try saying that 6 times drunk. And what this does, you take a laser, right, a normal laser, and you shoot it into a beam splitter. Robin, no points for working out what the beam splitter does. One part of the beam goes 4 kilometers in one direction until it hits a mirror, and it comes 4 kilometers back towards the beam splitter. The other part of the beam, because remember, it's split, goes 4 kilometers in one direction and hits a mirror and comes 4 kilometers back in the other direction. Now, light travels at the speed of light, yeah, and they've both gone 4 kilometers there and 4 kilometers back. So what we want to measure is when the two beams, which one of them arrives first. And they've both gone the same distance, at about the same speed, or exactly the same speed. So they should recover back at the same time, right? But if a gravitational wave passes through, then one of the arms of the interferometer is going to be shorter, the other one's going to be a little bit longer. And so one of the wave fronts arrives at the sensor first, and that's how you detect gravitational waves. Congratulations, Robin! You've won a prize for physicsing. Now, I had the pleasure of going to one of these sites during my PhD, back in 2016, before all the bad stuff happened. You know what I mean. I was out in a place called Hanford in Washington State. It used to be the home of the place where they refined radioactive material that got dropped on Japan in what probably should be called an awful part of history. So it's the next most radioactive place in the world after Chernobyl. Chernobyl couldn't fuck me up. What have I got to worry about? So I was out there for a good few months, and while I was out there, something really big happened, was that the gravitational waves were discovered, and we announced it to the world. And you think this is the bit where me, an attention whore, who actually, I haven't spoken about myself for a few minutes yet. Robin, I'm going to need you to come backstage afterwards. So gravitational waves were announced, and it was big, and it was big news. There was interviews with NPR, and there were interviews with the BBC back home, and everyone was talking to a whole bunch of people, radio interviews, TV interviews, written up in the newspapers. There's only a problem with this, was that nobody was talking to me. Pity me! Rightly so. There are people who've been working on this for their whole careers, for 50 plus years, and I waltzed in the right place and the right time. But my mum always said I had such a good face for radio and such a good voice for print papers. So, I guess it makes sense that nobody was talking to me. My bit of the research wasn't exactly on the kind of gravitational wave they detected, which was from 2 black holes spiraling towards each other. Mine was, my PhD was spent coding in a dungeon, all on my own, without any attention paid to me. So eventually, I finished that, came back and finished my coding, and I had to write up. I quite enjoy writing up. Most people don't like their write up, and I fully understand this. But Robin, what do I like? Attention. That's right. So I used to walk into the library, coffee in one hand, laptop in the other, wearing pretty much this. My own private fashion show. I'd walk between the aisles of desks and get my life. I didn't need all the eyes on me, I just imagined they were. So I'm what? A narcissist. But now I've submitted my PhD in Harvard, and I'm Dr. Brynley Pearlstone, and I'm going to work out... And now I'm working out what's next. And I'm trying to make up this attention deficit I've felt for the last 4 years, which is why I'm on stage now wearing dungarees and a rainbow dye-tie tank top in Glasgow. So I'm looking for career prospects that can keep me, entertained. And frankly, Bright Club, you've been a fantastic audience tonight, but not fantastic enough. So I'm trying to work on my summer pod for next year. I want to go on to Love Island. The only problem is I'm not sure I can keep up the illusion of being straight around that many pretty boys for long enough. So maybe I'll get my wigs out and my dresses and apply for season 2 of Drag Race UK. Thank you very much, it's been lovely.